Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Genesis Home Podcast, where we talk to professionals in real estate, business, community, and beyond. Today, we're talking with Justin Walker of JKO Fitness. We're covering so much: fitness, going virtual, the importance of health and small business, and so much more. So let's get started. Justin Walker, the fitness extraordinaire.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. Just a fitness coach, you know.
Well, it's not just a fitness coach. I mean, you do a lot of other things as well. So why don't you tell them what you do? I mean, you have the MMA, you have
So,
like a lot.
well, I am a general overall fitness coach, but I also do a lot of athletic and conditioning. I do self-defense training. I work with youth, and I do MMA, boxing, and kickboxing training as well. But I just like to pull it all under the umbrella of fitness coach or wellness coach. I work with nutrition as well, so just trying to help people be the best versions of themselves, be better humans.
Yeah. So what made you decide to pursue this line of work or this industry?
Just it's a need, and it's a need in the communities that I come from. Um, the health and wellness industry is many times unaccessible for urban communities, or at least the upper echelon of it. And you see a lot of families in urban communities, Black and brown families, suffer from bad health and bad eating habits. And so I think it's incumbent upon every generation to find a way to fix the issues that happened in the previous generation. And for us, as you well know, you know, black lives are the black lifespan is much shorter than the average white American lifespan. So trying to change that.
I hear you. And, you're absolutely right. I just got through reading an article about food deserts. And you said something really important about trying to correct or, adjust what happened in like before. And I just find that fascinating. So you said that you work with the youth as well. So what does that entail?
Well, I do private one-on-one training with youth for like self-defense and sports, and that also helps with confidence and dealing with bullies and things of that nature. But I also give nutritional advice and like tips. I've worked with youth groups. A few years ago, I worked with a hospital program. I'll never forget, I met a 11-year-old who was about 300 pounds. Who was
Wow.
Yes, he was also about, to be fair, he was like 6'2", so one of the biggest 11-year-olds I've ever met. And what was really crazy is that he had never eaten an apple before. He didn't know what it was.
Seriously?
Mm-hmm. I kid you not. His parents routinely fed him chicken nuggets. They just gave into whatever he wanted. And he liked McDonald's, so he ate McDonald's almost every day. And I'm like, that's funny because they have apples at McDonald's. So for you to not know what apples are is kind of scary. But it's not his fault. And I feel like a lot of times we blame the youth for things that are really not their fault. Like the habits that they've developed usually come from parenting. So if you have an unhealthy child, it's usually because you fed them an unhealthy diet.
The funny thing is that everyone has like their own story, their own journey. So what made you say this is how I want to help my people? So what got you to this point where you said, you know what, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to pursue. This is the business I want. So what's the story behind, you know,
Well,
JKO Fitness?
well, growing up, I was big into martial arts and playing sports. I wrestled in high school for my first 2 years, but I always like battled my own weight issues. By my senior year of high school, I was my freshman year of high school, I was 210 pounds. And I wrestled for 2 years and I worked my way down to about 155, 160. And then I transferred schools. And by my senior year, I was up around 200 plus pounds again, which is heavy for me. And when I graduated, I started boxing. And my boxing coach was more of a teacher. And he taught all of us to, teach the art of boxing, not just to learn it. And also through teaching, you learn. So, and I've always had a love of teaching and helping people develop a skill. I used to do it when I was a student in martial arts, and learning how to coach and teach boxing really led me to think about fitness. And one of my biggest influences was, my coaches, my martial arts instructor and my boxing coach. Their coaches and teachers can be really big influences in life. And I don't I wanted to have that effect on people. And I love, wearing gym clothes every day. Um, so there's that. I don't have to put on a suit and tie, and I get to create my own schedule, and I get to help people learn how to be healthier, better versions of themselves and develop confidence. And it's just fun. I've been doing it for about 11, 12 years now. And, there's so many levels to working in fitness or, this field, from being a strength coach for a college team to being a gym teacher at a high school. It's all fitness, it's all health, right? So there's so many levels to being in this field that I feel like you can do so many things, especially now with social media and people are influencers who aren't really in the field, but they just, pretend to be. So I feel like it's incumbent upon the people who really are in the field to make their voice heard and do the right thing and try to lead, spread the message of fitness over aesthetics. Like we're not just training for six packs and big booties. Like we're training to be healthier, better human beings.
You know what? You mentioned a great topic, that I didn't even think about, that, social media does play a huge role in the way people perceive of themselves and in fitness. So how, we go online all the time, we see Instagram and goes, I found a way to get my butt to look like this person because I did squats for 15 seconds. But we all know that's not reality. So how
Well, first of all, don't assume that everyone knows that that's not reality. Unfortunately, many people think what they see on social media is reality. So that's a main issue, and you do have a lot of people out there peddling a body image that, for most people, isn't possible. And then themselves, their body isn't real. And when I say real, like it's not a natural body, like it's not something that you could work towards. Like there are no workouts that increase the size of your breasts. Um, that's surgery. um, so you know, and telling people that you will get this hourglass figure if you drink this, special tea and wear this waist trainer is, it's unfair. And because, people out there do struggle with body image and they are looking for real answers. And the first answer is that you should love yourself, regardless of what shape you're in. And if you need to improve that, don't be ashamed that you need to do that. And also don't diminish yourself for needing improvement. Everyone needs improvement in some area of their life. Some people are, ripped like Greek gods and have mental health issues, right? Michael Phelps, one of the greatest athletes of all time, but he struggled with depression. So it doesn't really, issues come in all shapes, all forms, and they should be addressed properly. And there really is no quick fix to any of the issues that people want to solve.
that's incredibly true. But the one thing I think stands out is so let's just say, for argument's sake, and I'm just throwing a scenario really quick. I go online, I think you know me, and we've had this conversation multiple times, that I'm not a social media influencer type person. Like, I won't scroll through things and find the latest fitness trend. But and let's just say I scroll online, I found out this lady has a two-step system for getting the perfect pear-shaped body.
Right.
Okay. And I do it and I don't have the perfect pear shaped body, but then I get frustrated. Then I go to you. Let's just use you as an example. And I say, well, this person says they have a two-step system to getting the perfect pear shaped body, which is fairly common amongst, like, you know, African American women. We do have body issues. I mean, everyone has body issues, but, you know, I think as African American women, I think we take it to another level. So how do you address something like that on a smaller or more, you know, one-on-one basis, as opposed to, you
Well,
know, what we see today?
I think the first thing is to understand why the person wants this. Like, what do you want and why do you want it? And usually, when you find out somebody's why, you can help them see if they even want that. Like, is that really what you want, or do you just, you know, like, do you really just want a bigger butt, or would you just like to have a general overall better feeling about your body, right? And that's where training for performance comes in, because getting stronger, learning a new skill, all of these things boost confidence, right? Like, it's not just, you know, about looking a certain way, it's about feeling a certain way. And feeling that way takes work, and real work. And it's, you know, there's not too many two-step systems for anything that I know of. You know, those things are what we call, I guess, bait and switches, where the person draws you in, and hopefully they have something more than their two-step system. Hopefully they can offer you, you know, a year or 6 months of a program besides just these two steps, because those two steps don't really exist. But most of the time, it's usually just used to draw somebody in. You see it on store windows all the time, where they say get something free, and you're like, oh, and then fine print is buy four get one free. So I think that's it's a very common tactic, and it's not just in the fitness industry. You don't want to pick on the fitness industry. It's in every industry.
No, I mean, yeah, I
Bait and
mean,
switch tactics, or, you know, it's just sales. And honestly,
right.
it's kind of why people don't trust people in service industries, because um, unethical sales practices.
That is true. You know what? That's an interesting point, considering the fact that, like I said, we had 2020. In 2020, we saw a lot of people try to force, you know, this product. This, you mentioned the teas, like, and all these
Oh,
other
there's all of it.
things.
I mean, and to be honest, I feel like everyone is willing to do everything, but one of my friends said this best. Everyone's willing to do everything, but eat less calories. like, like, like what it actually takes to lose weight is to track what you eat, consume less calories, work out, eat a balanced diet, and change your lifestyle, which doesn't just mean how you eat and if you work out, but how you eat, how you sleep. Are you only sleeping 3 or 4 hours a night? Which New Yorkers are very guilty of, only sleeping 3 to 4 hours a night. Like, no, your body needs a chance to recover. So sleeping 6 to 8 hours a night will make a huge difference in how your body reacts to working out and nutrition. Like, do you live by a schedule? Do you just eat randomly? Do you get angry and eat 2 pints of ice cream? Like, it is about changing your lifestyle and your relationship with food.
You know, I've been hearing you talk right now for a while now, and I'm hearing the fact that you're big on the relationship with self when it comes to health and fitness than it is about the outside. You know, when, you know, sometimes when you go to some of these fitness coaches, they're talking about, well, I can get you ripped, I can get you that six pack. But with you, it's more about, I can get you comfortable with yourself.
I mean, I personally can't get anyone anything. Um, to be very clear, when I first started fitness coaching, I had a very experienced coach for a mentor about my first year into the business, and he said, take as little credit for your clients' um, achievements as possible. And he's right. The the maximum time that I can spend with any client is roughly 5 hours out of 765 in a week. Right? Like if I had a client who trained 5 days a week, they would still have to do something the other 760 hours. If I'm correct on my math, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I can't possibly do everything and give you a six pack and change your entire being in those 5 hours when you have 760 hours by yourself or to live your life. So it's very disingenuous for oh, for a coach to claim that they can do that. 168 hours, sorry. So there's 24 hours in a day, there's 7 days in a week, that's 168 hours. So
Yeah, I got the we got the gist.
yeah, but
The
like to fact check things sometimes. As you can see, my favorite class was gym, not math. So
Yes, I remember.
but yeah, so way off base with 765, but out of you don't really spend that much time with people, so they have to. You can give them the tools, you can facilitate, but you can't do anything for anybody, right? Like I could be working out with a person, and I can be as motivating and as engaging as I want, but if they're mentally not there because something happened at home that day, well, we're going to have to deal with whatever is going on in your head so you can get in the game, so you can have a good workout, right?
That is correct.
So I really think like I've had many sessions that were more therapy than fitness, but you do what you have to do to help people progress.
That's true. And the interesting thing is you mentioned progression and stuff like that. I feel like in 2020 the entire time everything was kind of like at a standstill. People couldn't go to the gym, they stayed more at home. I bet that impacted them physically and
Oh, it
mentally.
definitely did. I think it challenged so even people who were into fitness or health, but they had their routine. They got up every morning, hopped in the car, went to the gym, went from the gym, went to work, went from work, maybe they went back to the gym. This is like someone who's like really into it, right? So they hit the gym in the morning, they go to work, hit the gym at night, then they go back home. And even those people who seem ultra dedicated to their fitness routines had a problem because now you're not getting up and leaving. Now you're home and you're seated more. So finding a way to maintain your routine, even though it might change, like maybe I still wake up, I don't leave, I work out at home. I do my work, then I work out again. Like finding a way to find your routine in, I guess, quarantine, it was challenging for everybody. And I know many, fitness professionals who would tell you the same, that they themselves had issues maintaining their physical fitness. And other,
Well, what was it like for you? I mean, business wise, it couldn't have been
oh,
easy
not
because
at all. I have I was more of a in-person coach, one-on-one, or dealing with families. I train families, but like in person. And during that time, there was no in-person training. Gyms were closed. So I had to start doing virtual style training over Zoom. And I had to form an online business where I program people's workout for the week. and maybe I meet with them once a week via the phone or have a Zoom call to check in. And I basically had to create an entirely new business of like online training, which is now something that I offer as well. Besides, like I have a hybrid program where we can train virtually or in person, but I also do your daily programming. And I have a program where I just train you remotely, where I don't really see you, but we talk. I check in on you every day, or every other day. You might not want to be checked in on every single day. Maybe you just want to hear from your coach every 2 or 3 days. Hey, how's it going? How was that workout? And that became a real, a real major part of my business. It was already a major part of a lot of fitness professionals' business, but it became even more important. And just the virtual online fitness kind of blew up because it had to. And even now, gyms in New York City are not, they're at 25% capacity. And that's not enough to sustain a brick and mortar space in New York. If your rent was $10,000 and all of a sudden you went from being able to have 30-person classes to 8-person classes, you're going to have a hard time making $10,000 rent. So creativity has really had to take place. For instance, I have a friend, a mentor actually, who runs the youth and adult kung fu studio in Quad City, the Marshall Way Center. Sorry, I trained there when I was a youth. That's what it was named back then. Now it's the Marshall Way Center, and he also happens to be a DJ, and he started virtual paint nights. So like he had to find a way to keep the business going. So he started doing like paint nights. Now he seems to be an amazing artist, painting by numbers. So we've all had to shout out to Christopher Robinson. We've all had to find our creativity, right? Like I would not have said, at the beginning of 2020 that I am someone who's going to teach on screen constantly. But now I teach virtual classes. I train virtual clients, and it's not the same. It's definitely not. I do still like that in-person interaction, but it's definitely effective. And it gives me an option as the sole entrepreneur of my business, the sole person who works for me, to take a vacation and still train clients if I need to. So it's actually led to some more flexibility within my business. But it was very challenging when it first happened.
So you're very big on the relationship. You even said it a lot that you do more. You're more one-on-one, in person. How did the relationship change when it came to being virtual, or did it change when you went virtual?
Um, it changes a little bit. Even for me, like I have clients that I was used to seeing. I've had one client for almost the entire time I've been a trainer, and he's part of my week. As much as I'm a part of his week, 2 or 3 days a week, he's a part of my week 2 or 3 days a week. And we're friends. So for me to sit here and say, well, it didn't really change. No, it definitely changed. I'm used to seeing my friend and working with them an hour every day, an hour, 3 days out of the week. It's similar to how I'm sure kids feel about school. They're used to socializing with their friends, and virtual school is nowhere nearly as fun. And so the socialization aspect definitely changed. So it just became more incumbent on me as the coach to try to reach out a little more and text a little more and see how people are doing. And also, things are different now. You got 3 kids at home, and you're, I don't want to say stuck, but you're at home with your 3 kids all day. It's the tone of a virtual session might be different. You got your kids in the background. This might be your only hour to close your door and be in the room by yourself. So I feel like it definitely changed the communication, and it changed the closeness. But if you had a coach who's willing to make an effort and continue to try to communicate, then you might have even grown closer during this time. Right? Just like, couples who went on to get engaged and couples who broke up.
It's just interesting that, it's funny thing is that you also became more active on social media because you also do your videos as well. So you live stream every so often. What's that like? Because you weren't
I
doing that
definitely was
before.
not. And it's not that I don't enjoy social media. As a business person, I've always, I dabble. I'm in it. I'm there. I try to make my presence known. But I would say that I've always been more of a consumer of social media, as like I use it as an escape from my workday, as opposed to just, strictly using it for business. Now that's kind of balanced out to about 70% business, 30%, enjoyment. And it was also an outlet, you know. Obviously, I work with people and I'm a very social and outgoing person. So during those times where we couldn't see people on a regular basis, it's nice to just get on social media and talk as if you are talking to a friend. And then there's also the business aspect of it. So all in all, I feel like social media probably helped a lot more people than it harmed during this time period. And it definitely helped a lot of businesses because it's a free marketing tool. You can someone who would never get a chance to see my class can see me live streaming 10 to 15 to even an entire class and like, I like that class. And that's not something that they would have a chance to do. So I actually I did make better use of the platform.
So what was that like for you in the beginning? Because I follow you on social media. Well, I've known you for years, so let's be honest here. I've known you for since what,
Yes.
teens, and so seeing you on social media as consistent as you are is interesting to me because you're more of a this is you're more of a in person type of situation. You even said yourself you're more sociable. So was it difficult to like be more sociable online than it was to be going to the networking events
Well,
or stuff
I
like
think
that?
so because, and I don't know how any other professional feels when they watch a video, but I remember watching Dave Chappelle talk about watching other comedians do comedy, and he's like, he wouldn't get upset out of a jealousy standpoint, but he would say, "Oh, I could do that better," right? And so there are those times when like you go to make a video and you're watching yourself on video and you're like, "Can I do this better? Can I do that better?" And the second guessing, even when you know what you're doing, there's always going to be like, oh, is the lighting good? Is this? And I'm not like a professional videographer or anything like that. Or so, is this the best angle? You think about those things, and it's not something you think about when you're in front of people and have a conversation. If you're going to a networking event, you dress appropriately and you go out there and let your personality show, and it's a more free flowing thing as opposed to when I'm going to make this 5-minute video about these 5 workouts and we're going to break them down and we're going to make sure we break them down properly and use the proper language. And we're going to make sure that we're easy to understand, we're clear, we don't ramble. And there's a lot of those boxes that you have to check because you want people to watch your video and you want it to lead to more than just watching, right? You want someone to say, hey, I want to work with that guy. So it actually is, depending on your personality. Some people are very perfection oriented. It can be a lot. I'm sure. For me, I just decided that I'm just gonna make videos until I'm good at it. Like so, hopefully, video number 20 in November was better than video number 1.
Well, the great thing about your videos, though, is that there's a sense of genuineness with it. So you're seeing like we're progressing with you, but so many great things came out of you being more virtual. I mean, you've been in magazine articles, you've been in other, videos and stuff like that. So how did that feel, that in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of adjusting yourself, that people took notice? I mean,
Honestly, it's gonna sound crazy, but it didn't feel positive in any way. Because well, no,
really?
because during that time, at least during that while it was happening, we're still in the thick of it. So um, while you're going through something, even while good things may be happening here and there, it still feels like you're going through something. So while I I wound up doing a fitness post for Madame Noir and things like that. That's great, awesome, but I'm still running at 25 to 30% capacity, for my business, or the gym I work at is still struggling to pay their rent. So while good things are happening, it's still like the bigger pictures, and I think that's any person in life, right? Like if you're struggling to pay your rent, it doesn't matter that someone brings you free lunch. So like it's nice, oh wow, I got free lunch, but you still have to pay rent. Now that I'm out of it and I think about like some of the things that happened, it's like, oh, it wasn't as bad, or some good things came from it. And in life, good things usually come out of bad times.
Right. One of the things that you also discussed when it came to fitness was the fact that you do MMA. Aren't you an MMA fighter?
I am, but I haven't been active, obviously, all of 2020. Um, some fighters were able to stay active and still fight. It usually just depends on your location. I guess like if you're in the state of Georgia, everything still opens, everything's still going. Um, but in but in New York, with gyms closing, it's probably pretty tough. If you're at the professional level, that's a whole different story. I'm hopefully on my way to the professional level, but even if I don't get there, I've enjoyed my time fighting MMA and boxing and kickboxing and things like that. It's a blast. So, and it definitely helps me bring a level of realism and perspective to my self defense training when I train clients. It's like I know this works, so I know this doesn't work.
So, so I'm gonna ask the elephant in the room. What is the difference between Krav Maga, MMA, and karate?
Oh, I didn't know that was the elephant. Okay.
Yeah, that was the elephant. I've been wanting to ask that question this entire time, but I kind of gathered the mustard. But I always wanted to know what is really the major difference, because some people say, that Krav Maga
Well,
is more of a different discipline than
first
MMA, and I just want to know
first
what
of
are
all,
the
what I would
difference. What's the
I would
difference?
start by saying that no style is better than any other style. I like would just put that out there. So that's my first clear statement. Um, Self-defense, fighting, it all depends on the person who's using it, right? So that's the first thing. Krav Maga is a self-defense style that was really created for military use and then adopted for civilian self-defense. So it's really the Israeli self-defense form. And even Krav Maga is an amalgam of other fighting styles and techniques, mostly techniques. So, it's not like traditional karate where you'll learn katas or forms, you'll learn a sequence of movements. It's just straight up. When someone attacks me in the street, I knee them in the groin, gouge out their eyes. It's but that's basically what Krav is. It's like what to do in a street fight. And that's why it's become very popular in urban areas so quickly, because unfortunately urban areas have street fights and more crime, and as you know, living in New York City, crime has been on the uptick. So the self-defense is a priority. I always hashtag, one of my hashtags is self-defense is self-care. Like you can't say you care about yourself if you can't defend yourself. So, it doesn't have to be,
Facts.
problem of God. It could be, if you live in uh, an open carry state or a state where you can carry a gun, well, you should carry one. So, and while, karate's a more traditional style, going back to the differences, karate's a traditional style that teaches discipline and a more systematic approach to learning. And it's not really about learning how to fight. So I would say that Krav Maga is learning how to fight in a street self-defense situation. MMA, mixed martial arts, is learning how to fight um, for the competition of MMA. It's a combination of not just one martial art, but jujitsu, which is grappling and submissions, and wrestling, which if you ever watched high school wrestling or Olympic style wrestling, and boxing and kickboxing. So MMA is really not its own style. MMA is the umbrella of different styles in competition, mixed martial arts. So MMA pretty much exists because, or the term MMA exists because of competition. The UFC, Pride, Strikeforce, all those organizations where MMA started. So that's where that term even comes from. And karate or kung fu, well, those are just the two most popular, oldest martial arts styles. And they branch off into many different styles. There's many forms of karate. There's over 100 styles of kung fu. So it's just, and that's why my coach, who Matt has, is a master of, I don't think though he likes to use that term, but he's a master of multiple styles of kung fu, and he's mastered some jujitsu, and at the end of the day, he just calls it what it is. It's fighting. Like you can give names to everything, but a jab is a jab, whether you want to call it something else or not. So I say focus on learning techniques that work for you and your body type, and learn what you need, right? Like the average adult doesn't need to learn traditional style karate to defend themselves. They don't want to know the forms. They don't want to know how the horse stance works and how the bow stance, like they don't care about that. And that's fine because, the discipline and confidence of, which are major components when you learn karate, a lot of that is more useful for kids, and learning those things are how kids learn discipline. The average adult wants to learn if she's in a dark alley and someone attacks her, what to do. Well, that's a knee to the groin and palm strike to the nose, or chop to the throat, or poking out the eyes, or using your keys to stab someone with your keys, which is completely different than what you'll learn in a traditional karate or kung fu studio. Although all of it has its place, and all of it can be useful, and you can defend yourself with all of it. I mean, you can defend yourself with any style of martial art if you practice it enough.
The interesting thing is you mentioned different styles and techniques, and the adult versus the person who makes this a focus. The interesting thing about this conversation is that, well, Justin, you're Black, so
Really?
how?
No, I'm kidding. This whole time, I thought I was just like,
yes, I wanted to tell you
I
myself.
thought it
I
was
just
that
didn't know
accident at
how.
Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
And there's not a lot of you look online. I mean, you got the
Well,
typo
to be
guy.
fair, I know where this is
you
going.
know
There actually is a ton. a ton of well-known black martial artists. They're just not mainstream. They're not, they're not like the people that you'll see in movies. And to be fair, we live in America, so almost everything's been whitewashed. So to
Right, but I think, and I don't mean to cut you off, but don't you think that, being, a kid who, and I know we've seen this, like, I know we talk about social media and things like that, but, you see these kids, a lot of these black kids do, like, they know how to do gymnastics, they do all that stuff. Don't you think, and when black women are becoming more and more and more of a dominant figure in the circuit, how come, even though we do live in a country that has its issues, putting it mildly, why aren't there more
well, I
mainstream,
think I, I
black fitness, like black fitness
I think
coaches and
there
things
I
like
think
that? I mean,
there's definitely a demand, and I do think it's being met. Every I was once told by a prominent studio, very well known, very famous, that they had met their black guy quota years ago when they had just hired a black guy. And I found it comical, but it's kind of true. Now that they're more well known and more mainstream and they're in a lot of people's homes, they have more black people. But at the time, they were not as big. They only had one black employee. And I feel like on that level, everyone feels like they just have to fill a quota of diversity. I interviewed for a new gym that opened up in New York City, I guess, in 2019, or roughly right before the pandemic hit. So I guess towards the end of 2019. And they hired no black people. And for a boxing gym in New York City to interview probably 1,000 fitness coaches and come out with no African American coaches is impossible unless you just don't want to hire one. So, like, I mean, yes, but
right,
technically, they hired someone who was brown-ish, right? So they met their quota. They had a guy who could pass for several different races. To be honest, he could be Israeli, he could be Moroccan, he could be South African. Like, so as long as a company has some color thrown in there, and this is not just in fitness, this is a regular thing. Like, I
well,
have a
yeah,
friend who is pretty prominent in his company, and when they promoted him to another level, they darkened his picture in their company newsletter.
what?
So, or in the newspaper period. So,
That's
like, companies are aware that there is a need for diversity. They're just, instead of, like, finding qualified African Americans or other brown people, they would rather just, circle around it.
so. Why can't we, as a community, just, and I'm not saying just because everyone goes, well, just like, let's just make this easy. Nothing's easy. I mean,
Well,
nothing ever one having is easy. I think you and I both know that.
I
But
think as a community, I
why
think we do.
can't we
Um,
do?
and I'm one of those people. If you know me, you follow me on social media, I for sure shout people out. So here we go. Right up in Harlem on, I believe, 137th, Frederick Douglass, Harlem Cycle, the first ever cycling studio in Harlem, was opened by a black woman. Her name is Tamika Rochester. She runs an awesome studio. She has virtual classes. Not too far from there is JTW Fitness, ran by another Frederick Douglass graduate, uh, Jaqueen Washington. He also just became men's health top trainer. So, like, we're doing it. It honestly does take a little more time because there are some more barriers to Black business ownership. And then of course I can't forget my boy William. He runs Benswick, also in Harlem. So we may not see, yeah, we may not seem
Harlem,
mainstream, but I think the first priority is setting up in our own communities. So,
which I love to hear, and I did not know that
well,
they were FDA
uh,
grads.
Jaqueen, yes,
Two of them
Jaqueen
are.
is an
One of
FDA
them are.
grad, and I believe his partner might be as well. And so it's just really, I mean, we're doing what we can. I also know there's one of my friends out in Detroit started Vibe Ride, I believe. Right? That's a
I've
Black
heard
woman.
of Vibe Ride.
So we're doing it. Peloton has, a couple of Black coaches. They're mainstream. Alex Toussaint, right? So I mean, we're getting there. It's a little slow going, and as companies don't think about reaching a quota instead and just being, hiring the best candidates, I'm sure you'll see more of us pop up. But
It's actually really cool, and I love the fact that
well,
it's
I
starting
mean,
in
that's where
our
it has to start
neighborhoods.
because
You know
that's
what
where
I
the
mean?
audience is for us, right? I mean, obviously,
That's
one
true.
of the main reasons that we don't get pushed is because they think we're not as marketable to the public, and they're not entirely wrong about that. They're not entirely right about it either. But
Mm.
I mean, can
Hmm.
you sell, you know, a dark skinned male with a big hawk fro in, into like virtual training someone's home in Idaho? Maybe not. So, it's much easier. It's much easier to get
But he.
Jenny, who's a nice 130-pound redhead white girl, into that home.
I'm not gonna lie though. I kind of would like to like write out a pentatonic with with the frohawk.
But
I would like the
I,
mohawk.
I
Okay, as but then
exactly.
again,
But
I'm also
I do
Black.
think that the more diverse all those spaces get, the easier it will be to to generate the interest, right? Because a lot of times, it's not like a blatant racist thing. It's just people want to see what they're used to seeing. They're, if I grew up in a town full of white people, I might first want to, the first coach I'm going to want to find or look for looks like me. That's how people are. But like I said, the more diverse these spaces get, the better. Like one space that's taken leaps and bounds has been yoga. Yoga was not really a
Yes.
diverse space in terms of teachers or students. I have taken yoga classes and been the only Black person in the room. So I've also, like as I've looked through pictures I've had, and from my years of teaching, there are many pictures where I am the only Black person in the photo. So, like the instructor teaching at Equinox with a classroom of 35 people, I am the only person of color in the room. Right. So like that's not, it's not an abnormal thing for an instructor of color to walk into a room and see no one else of color if they're not working in a predominantly Black neighborhood. So it's not just a like any time this subject is broached, there obviously is no simple answer, right?
I mean, clearly, I mean, because the world, everything has layers to it. But my thing is that if we, by having these conversations, like think about it, you just shout out what, 1, 2, 3, 4, roughly
Of course.
5 Black businesses
And that's also something
in this
that we should all
conversation.
be doing
Can you
constantly.
and that's right. We should get into that habit because that's what helps this grow. You even said that they came to, you have Co-op City, you have Harlem, which is Manhattan, which is New York, which is clearly makes sense. And it really is in a way down to us is also to make sure that those businesses get the respect that they deserve, get the recognition that they need, because it changes the narrative. Now, when someone listens to this podcast or when someone looks on YouTube and they see themselves, it's more about, okay, so there's things out there like me that exist, and I don't have to go to. No offense to Planet Fitness, but I
Yeah,
don't have to
and,
go to
and
Planet
when you
Fitness.
you go to a boutique, you there are Black boutique fitness spaces, right? Like JTW Fit or
Right.
Benswick, that's in Harlem, or Harlem Cycle. These are all smaller boutique style fitness places. I think right near Harlem Cycle is a pole dancing studio, and I'm 100% sure that they're ran and owned by a Black woman too. So our spaces, we are out there. Um, I think a major issue, and this is all across the board, is that we're afraid to plug each other for fear of losing business, for fear of, there can only be one. Well, this isn't Highlander, there can be many. um, um, there,
Ah,
there can be many.
okay, nerd.
And as a matter of fact, the more of us there are, the more business there'll be. Last time I checked, there were 7 billion people in the world. And that's who your market is now, if you think about the fact that we're online and we're virtual. So, for all the competition there is, and there is a ton in every industry, not just fitness, but there is a ton of competition. And and it is tough, but there's also a very, very, very large market, and I don't think any business person should be afraid to plug someone else's business that they know is good, to refer someone's business, someone to another business that they know is good, right? It's a very common, growing up, I always remembered how people would tell stories how if you go into, for instance, a Jewish store and you ask for something that they don't have at that store, that they would gladly send you to the next Jewish store that they may have. Like, oh, we don't have this here, but they have it there because their people stick together, right?
Right, and we should be able to do the same thing. I mean, I know I'm in real estate, which is true, but if I know full blown well that it doesn't fit what I can accommodate, clearly I'm going to say, well, this person can. It's about the community and the collaboration. I mean, if they succeed, I succeed, because at least that person knows, hey, if you go to this guy, he'll hook you up, because at least he knows what the
But it also
the
speaks to your
environment is
integrity
like.
too,
So
right? Like if you can't do something,
that's
attempting to do it would not be good. You can embarrass yourself and your business. So sending to someone else,
right.
so send that's so sending them to someone else that you know is qualified speaks to you, speaks to, one, you have a great network, you know, two, you were honest about your own abilities. And I think that goes
And
very
I
far. And whenever I do refer people to other businesses, I obviously try to refer them to people I know. Um, and I definitely try to
thank you
refer them to Black businesses because, yeah. So,
once
and I
again.
and I
Thank you.
and I don't really think I don't think it's that hard. I think
I don't think so either. And it's not about competition, it's about collaboration, and we have to work together. It's about collaboration and community. So I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. And like I said, in this entire conversation we've had, you've mentioned 5 businesses. That means plus 5 businesses, including yourself, which is 6, that people going to look closely at and go, maybe they're not far from me, or oh, they're virtual now, and I live in a place where probably I don't have the same access. So these are like I said, these are conversations that we need. The one, because I know we're almost at the end, but there's one question I do have is, and I always try to ask this, but what kind of advice would you give someone who is interested in health and fitness, or who wants to pursue this as a career? Because you just said that we're laying the foundation. That means that there's going to be people who want to add on to it. So what would be your
First
advice? What
things
would be
first
your
is figure out
tips?
your why. Um, like, why do you want to do this? Like, do you want to train professional athletes? Do you want to train, do you want to train kids? There's so many, like I said, fitness is a very big, multi-layered industry. Like, you could be a college strength coach, or you could be a, a little Tykes gymnastics coach who teaches 3-year-olds how to roll in their heads. So, no, seriously. Yeah, like, yeah, exactly. Jim Bree. That's the place I was thinking of.
Jimbury.
So first figure out, why you want to do this. Um, and I hope it's not like for the money or to determine your own schedule, because that's that's definitely not going to happen for a while. Uh, and then get educated. You know, NASM certification, ISCA. There's a lot of fitness certifications. Find a good one that's accredited, that is respected, and go from there. And find a mentor. I think that's the major thing in any business you want to start. Find a mentor, find a coach. This goes across the board. If you've never done it and you don't know how, find someone who does, and ask questions, and probably pay them, um, so that they're motivated to coach you. And yeah, that's really the major thing. Find a mentor, and find a mentor who's, I would say, in a similar position, or has a similar skill set, or there's similarities between you two. Not that you can't have a mentor who's different than you, but for it, like we talked about, just being Black in certain spaces. I don't know if you're a young Black man who wants to get into fitness coaching, if your mentor should be a white woman. She doesn't have any experiences that relate to you being in that space. The space is hers, to be honest. Right? Like that, like when she walks into that space,
Right.
it's hers. It's her space. It's just, everyone's comfortable with her being in that space. You might need a mentor that helps you navigate being Black in that space. So I would definitely think that's something to look into when you're looking for a mentor. I think finding a mentor is the biggest. After you figure out why you want to do something, that's probably the biggest thing. All right, I want to do this. Now let me find someone to teach me how to do it. I think that's probably the major piece of advice I would give to any fitness professional, but really to anyone who wants to start anything. Um, find a mentor, find a class. You know, Usually the mentor is even better than the class, because they can give you their real world experience, and they can answer questions that'll pop up that you didn't learn in the textbooks.
That's beautiful advice, especially the find a mentor, because I think people jump into something without, the full knowledge or scope, and someone to guide them through. So thank you so much,
Of
Justin,
course,
for
of
coming
course.
on. I'm
We
glad
should
you
make
said
this a
yes.
regular thing.
We should. There's so many, opportunities to discuss, health and fitness, and there's I still have so many questions. I mean, you got me. There's a lot that I can think about when it comes to, especially when it comes to community fitness, because that's something that's rarely discussed. I mean, that's that, helping each
Well,
other
I
out,
think
being a
I
support
think
system.
it's definitely
So
the
yeah,
community
you're
aspect of fitness
company
is
back.
definitely a major thing, and that reminds me of just one more person to plug. My cousin. Um, that's right. She's out in Hollis, Queens. They do Hollis runs every Saturday at 10 a.m. It's V Fitness, and yeah, she's about a year or two younger than me. She's like super awesome. She was a lawyer. She is a lawyer, and she really decided to get into fitness. And I mean, I come from an unhealthy family, the generation before me, like my mother's generation. Many of them passed away from health issues, and my cousin has been leading the way in her side of the family in terms of being fit and getting healthy and encouraging other members of our family to get into fitness. And one thing that she's in is a run group called Hollis Runs, which is really cool. So things like that are like community fitness, like hit.
Right. And that was so cool. But, like I said, there's like a lot of stuff that we really haven't. We only just, like, I think, scratch the surface about what really the topic of fitness and health and, even mental health, because we touched on that as well. So
Of course.
obviously you're coming back. I mean, duh. Like, that's obvious. But thank you, Justin, for coming on. This is the Genesis Home
You
podcast.
can find me on
Justin, where can they find
JKO
you?
Fit NYC on Instagram. So that's kind of and if you're in New York City, you can find me at Valor MMA on 72nd and Broadway, 2067 Broadway, 7th floor. So if you're in NYC, you can actually come find me here. We can work out. And if you want to look for me on social media, I'm JKO Fit NYC on Instagram.
Awesome.
Bye
Thank you,
bye.
everybody.